All right, welcome to another very special Pro Football Doc Sports Injury Central podcast with special guests. And obviously we have guest segments in the quote off season, but basically football season is here, and we wanted to bring on a titan of the industry, an innovator, and a guy who actually invited me to my very first fantasy football formal contest. I had never played before. Mr. Scott Fish himself, that I think everybody knows because of that fantastic Scott Fish Bowl that you have. And I have the T-shirt on, commemorative from my first year. I've done two of them now, and Taylor has the same shirt on here in studio in honor. So welcome, Scott, to the show.
Thanks for having me. I love seeing the shirts on you guys. I'm glad you guys play as well. It's quite an amazing event that it's turned into over the years.
Tell me about it. You just one day woke up and said, I'm going to do this, or what?
Well, I ran a site about 15 years ago, whatever, 12 years, a long time ago. I had a site, and I wanted to create something special, have something special for readers and listeners. I actually think Anyway. So we had a listener league type of thing. We went out and reached out to other industry people around the industry, and we got them to play in this league with our readers and listeners. And it became one of those things that, like, the first year we had like Jeff Hasley from Football Guys and Mike Clay from PFF, who's now at ESPN and stuff. And I think it's one of those things where each year more and more people want to jump in because they see everybody else doing it. But yeah, basically, that's where it started. Just your basic reader league for a site.
And now, how many people? You're in your 12th year.
Yeah, 12th year. It's going to be between 2,400 and 3,000.
How do you manage that?
I'm extremely organized, and I have been running fantasy leagues for 31 years at a very high volume too. I started playing fantasy in '92, and I've played in I've commissioned a ton of leagues over the years, and I run a commissioner service, so I know how to run a lot of leagues at the same time and keep them organized.
That's amazing. Yeah. Prior to joining Scott Fish Bowl 10, my entire fantasy experience was 1 year when my older teenage daughter, said she maybe wanted to play fantasy football. And we had a league that involved me, my wife, her, one of her friends. At the time, I had two boy-girl twins that were like 1 or 2 years old. And obviously, auto draft and instead of their lineups, literally, I'd put two toys in front of them, and this one would be one running back, this would be the other, and whichever toy they picked, that's what it was. and fantasy, that was my fantasy experience. And so in 2 years with you, I've actually enjoyed it. I get it. I'm not. Look, Taylor, our main analyst, he has like 37 leagues. I have no idea how he keeps track of it all. I got the one. Although last year, because you got me indoctrinated, Taylor got me indoctrinated in a couple other the quote public leagues, and I got up to 3 and I couldn't keep track. I kind of keep track to the Scott Fish, the original fantasy.
We did a best ball for you too, just trying to eliminate work, and that still didn't.
Yeah. Well, obviously, some of the concepts I'm still getting used to. Scott, one of the things I will say right flat out, and I do some fantasy stuff, and I'm on Sirius XM Fantasy Channel and stuff. I am not a fantasy expert. Yeah, I am an injury expert. Right. I don't know all the other things. Now, I've been lucky enough. I admit Taylor has helped coach me and teach me and say this is what fantasy is and this is what you need to do. And he's certainly the one that keeps me on timetable in the draft, saying, you better draft, you got 5 minutes. I was like, okay. And for those who think that I have it, I've been lucky enough that, I don't know, beginner's luck, I'd call it, Scott. We finished first in the division my first year, got the bye, got to the second round, and then got obliterated. Yeah. Okay. And this last year, I didn't make the top 20, we lost on the weekend that you posted. 19 people are undefeated. I forget what week that was, and I got a beef for the guy who logs. Look, I'm so disorganized, I can't log in. Right, so I'm like, I talked to Taylor about it. He logs in and he makes the computer moves, and we actually played an injured player that week.
Oh no!
And we would have been undefeated. So I've held that one over Taylor for a while.
It sounds
now.
like you're doing really well in the last couple of years, though.
But once again, the pattern was we won the division, got the bye, and got slaughtered in the second week. So I might be the Marty Schottenheimer quote, and Coach Marty, God bless him,
Yes.
Regular season okay, playoffs terrible. So I might try. I'm learning. Maybe there's a different way to draft to try and win something, right? And I think there is.
It could be.
I'm trying to, weekend. I don't know. I just draft. I don't know. And the first year, my guys all made fun of me in my league, and I really enjoyed it. Stefania Bell was in that league. She wasn't making fun of me. She was great.
No, she's
But
awesome.
some of the other good people were making fun of me. They're like, what's this guy Chow doing? He's got 0 running backs. Like, this is a strategy of 0 running backs.
No, it's a thing.
And I was just like, we had a little WhatsApp exchange or DM, whatever, list exchange where people were chirping. And I'm like, oh, he's got a 0 running backs right. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. I have 0 running backs because every time I'm about to draft a running back, the guy ahead of me takes the guy that I think is value in that round, and then I move on.
We're just playing chicken. There was no strategy.
There was no strategy. I mean, I ended up 0 running backs. And how about this? Last year, I ended up 0 quarterbacks.
Oh, man. And you still did that well. That's really impressive for a Superflex league.
Every time that we thought we were going to get that quarterback, someone took him. And I'm like, okay, but the backup guy, he's not worth a 4th round pick or a 3rd round. And they're like, okay, let's just put it off another round, And that happened. I mean, we went, I don't remember how
3
many.
or 4 times you did that conversation.
We went to round 7 or 8 before we got our quarterback. I mean, other teams had 2 and 3. Mm-hmm.
Man. Yeah.
And
I would have 2 or 3 by that point, too.
Yeah.
Well, I was trying to, but Scott, it
They
wasn't
kept taking
strategy.
them.
It wasn't 0 QB strategy. It wasn't. This year we didn't have as much dialogue, but I told my first year's guys that, hey guys, for all you think that 0 running backs is a strategy, I fell into 0 QBs and they laughed at me. But and the other thing is for injuries, I want to tell you this story, Scott. Mm-hmm. People have said, oh, like you did well on fantasy because injuries. We put it out there to everyone, everything that we know.
Yes.
And right now on our website, we have 50 preseason, and we'll talk about that, injury previews of guys and risers and fallers and who's back and who's not. And here's my second beef. Since Taylor, my number 1 guy assistant, called me out for one time I thought Shohei Ohtani wasn't going to do well, and he took the under strikeouts and he lost. He doesn't give me any credit for
Remember all losses, Scott. Right?
for the 5 NBA playoff ladders that he hit and altered its spreads. But I'm going to call him out on this one, and you'll find this funny. So the biggest piece of fantasy injury news last year was probably Michael Thomas. Mm-hmm. Especially, it was unknown. And I remember I was at a wedding of a friend of mine, and up in Carmel, and Taylor is blowing me up. We got to pick. I'm like, we got a couple hours. I mean, what are you bothered? I mean, I'm up here with my wife, and he goes, you just got to pick. And I said, and he looked, and we said, okay, Michael Thomas. So I picked Michael Thomas, and literally less than an hour later, Ian Rappaport broke the news of his surgery and all this other stuff. And I drafted Michael Thomas. I mean, I could have waited my time. I could have gotten the information.
Yeah.
And people do that, right? They'll wait their whole 8-hour clock just to waiting for the news cycle, right? You've seen it.
Absolutely do during this thing. They
but so the injury got me. I mean, people are like, what do you know about Michael Thomas? Apparently nothing. Right? We drafted him. And that
I thought we
hurt
had
us.
something. We didn't have anything.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Anyways, so tell me what you're up to. This Scott Fishbowl is only a small part of what you do. You do so many other things. Created the Devy League stuff.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
And we're headed into college football. And we're going to start covering college football at Sports Injury Central. How do you keep track? How do you do all this stuff?
I don't even know. I honestly think Devy might end up being my biggest contribution to this industry. and people will never know about it. They'll just think of me with Scott Fishbowl, and they won't realize I started developmental dynasty leagues in the 90s, and I was the first ever site with Devy, rankings, Devy articles, Devy pod. Like, Devy exists today because I made it exist today, and people, it's just insane to see how it's just completely blown up. I'm super proud of that.
Do you do anything except fantasy? I mean,
no,
do you have a life?
No.
Do you
it's my full-time job. Yeah, it's my absolute full-time job.
I mean, I know it's your full-time job, but do you do anything else?
No, I am a complete workaholic. I work. I will get up at 2-3 in the morning and send emails, and stuff. I'm constantly doing stuff all day long. I'm getting better at the work-life balance, but I'm constantly, like, I have so many fantasy things going on between that, raising money for toy drives through the leagues, and the commissioner service I run, all the various shows I'm on. Yeah, it's all fantasy all the time for me.
So we'll ask you a question that we asked last week on the podcast. Last week we had Stephen Che on, and he's now the new commissioner for that Mike Trout League.
Oh boy!
Right?
Oh boy!
And I asked him this question. I love having Steve Che on, but he didn't. He was very political. I asked Steve, is what Jock Peterson did legal? Who's right, Tommy Pham or Jock Peterson? And he gave a very political, he gave a nice answer. It depends, this, that, the other. I'll ask you the question.
I think I'd probably
Did he deserve to get slapped? Did he do something wrong? Or
nobody
what's
deserves
the
to
deal?
be slapped.
Okay.
But I feel I don't know all the complete information of that, except for their rules in their league said one thing and the site said another, and so so a move was made, following the rules on the actual league host that didn't go with what the rules of the league were supposed to be. So I chalk it more, at least from what I know of the situation, from what I heard from all those sources when that story broke and they were talking about it, it was closer to miscommunication than it was, an issue of someone trying to break the rules. One guy was simply trying to, operate within what the league host allowed, and the other guy was realizing this is against the rules from what we set up for the league. So I think I'm almost being probably just as political, but it seems closer to miscommunication than intentional cheating.
So what you're kind of saying is if anyone deserved to be slapped, it was Mike Trout, the commissioner.
As a commissioner who's run
what you heard?
tens of thousands of leagues over the years,
I'm just joking.
I have forgotten to do a setting correctly before, and I'm going to say no to that one because I've been in that spot. You try to do the best.
Taylor's never forgotten the setting either. I mean,
I remember one problem I had. Remember Doc was talking about how we were late, getting picks like down to the wire. I remember one specifically that it was definitely my fault that I didn't alert him, and the clock went. So I went on your DMs. I was like, "Hey, Doc's surgeries are crazy right now. Please just let us get the pick back." And you were nice. You were like, "Oh, of course, too," because I'm sure other people have issues. But I was just like, this is too easy. You're way too nice. How maybe I get some pushback like, hey, why are you doing this from your Twitter account? What's Doc's account? What are you doing?
I'm usually pretty quick on that stuff. But that's the beauty of SFB. That's actually a rule that is going away this year that I'm sad is going away because it doesn't work on all the platforms we're on. But where you miss a pick and your pick is just skipped like the NFL, and then you can just pick your player anytime. That's how it was. So of course I can replace.
Right.
Well,
that actually reminds me of something. Since this is my get even moment for Taylor. For Scott, what do you think? What would your suspicion be if indeed last year the guy who enters it? We talk about it, but I just don't physically do any of the changes in the lineups and so forth. Yeah. And even the draft, he enters them. I would lose track. I mean, he calls me. I'm at Costco with the kids or something. Okay, do this. Person. You think coincidence or not? That last week, last year, when we were down to 19 that were undefeated, and you put out that stat, that was the week that I played, it's me, an injured player. Mm-hmm. And if we looked at the score, if not, we would have been undefeated, so there would have been 20. But among those 19, you've been nice enough to include Taylor in the Scott Fish Bowl 11, his first year.
Yeah.
And he was among one of the 19.
Oh, boy.
Now, do you think it's coincidence that he played an injured player?
Oh, boy.
I need a ruling here.
Oh, boy. That sounds like he was bumping you out there.
Right? If you read all these events on paper, 100% it looks like I did it. I just know I did it.
No, I'm sure.
I mean, that's past suspicious, right?
Every fantasy player has played an injured guy from time to time. We've all had the situation where we've had a bye and then got walloped in the second round. Like these are things fantasy players can definitely relate to.
Yeah. Well, but what about the shenanigans of the guy entering it? Like he's like.
The circumstances are iffy, I'll give you that.
So some fantasy guys, who do you love this year? Who do you hate? Compared, so forth. And what's your takes on some of these guys? We can go through the injuries or whatever you want to do it.
Sure. I mean, there's guys I love that I think are going way below ADP, et cetera. Like, I love Rashad Bateman this year. I think he's going to be the number one wide receiver there in Baltimore. I love Allen Robinson. I don't even understand what's going on with Allen Robinson because unless you believe he's completely washed, weeks 1 through 9, Robert Woods was wide receiver 12. And weeks 13 on with Odell Beckham, he was wide receiver 13. Like, Allen Robinson has all the potential in the world to be a top 12 to 15 wide receiver in that offense, as long as he's not completely washed. And honestly, I feel like he just didn't want to play for Chicago last year. I think that's more of it. I absolutely love Kirk Cousins this year. I think he has the potential to be a top 5 quarterback. They are talking up here about how they're just going to basically throw it all day long. Just light up scoreboards. It's going to be a high volume passing offense. It's just a spot where it's going to be such a crazy difference from the Zimmer run based defensive heavy offense, and I think that Cousins has the tools to do it up here. Those are 3 that come to my mind right away that I really love that I consistently see getting drafted way too low.
I have a question on Robinson, Scott. Do you think people are worried about Odell Beckham maybe potentially joining the team? I know he did tear his ACL Super Bowl. He's probably not going to play for the first half of the season, a little more maybe. But, do you think maybe that's jumping his ADP down a little bit?
And you guys, I'm sure, know way more than me. But the most recent reports have him coming back in November. He's not even signed. So even if that's true, the way I play fantasy, I will take those first 2 to 3 months with Allen Robinson, and I'll figure it out afterwards. If that actually does end up being a thing that tanks Allen Robinson's value, fine. I got 10 weeks of Allen Robinson being what I consider to be a wide receiver 2. A wide receiver 12 to 24.
Well, from our perspective, I think November is optimistic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more December, if anything. Look, the Rams have shown a lot of love to Odell and Odell to the Rams. But, I mean, realistically, why is he going to sign now? Why would a team sign him now? They don't even know what his value is to them now. They don't know he's not passed on a physical. Same reason Jimmy G is not, we've been saying for months from the get-go, he's not tradable until he can throw a ball. And with his surgery, he can't throw a ball until into July at the earliest. Odell Beckham's value will be if he can show he's healthy and there's a need, with a playoff-bound team.
Yes.
Then he can actually get some money. Any money that he's getting right now is like token money. There's no way he's signing or going anywhere right now to the Rams or anywhere else.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't see him signing until near the end of that injury recovery with a contender.
And then on Bateman, Scott, I totally agree. Remember last year he had the core muscle surgery right when he was supposed to learning the system, learning his teammates and stuff. This year it's a full, great offseason, no Marquise Brown, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, like you said, sky's the limit for Bateman. I agree with that as well.
Yep.
Yeah, well, just make sure if we pick him that you play him and you don't bench him.
Yeah, you're right. Less leagues this year, right? Less leagues, maybe.
If he's injured for a week, play him that week too.
Yes.
How about guys that are you think are overvalued this year?
I haven't dealt a whole lot in the overvalued players, but I think guys that come to mind right now are guys like Leonard Fournette, who came to camp, once again, a little overweight, needs to shed it down. Rashad White is there, who's an excellent pass catcher. I do feel like Brady trusts Fournette, but I'm a little more worried about that offense without Godwin. Like, I don't know if it's going to be as high volume. You'd expect Godwin being out to help Fournette because he can catch the ball well, but also, is that offense going to click as well? Are they going to score as many points as they did? Is it going to be that good? I think Fournette's going a little too high for me. I think James Robinson is continuing to go way too high for an offense that I think Travis Etienne is almost going to take over that role. And James Robinson, he might even not be ready for the start of the season. So I don't understand why he's going as high as he is. Those are a couple that came right to mind.
Well, from an injury perspective, we agree with you that James Robinson might not be ready to go. Travis Etienne is coming off his foot injury himself, and what we're saying is the foot injury should be okay, but he's a speed guy.
Yeah.
And does he lose a quarter of a step? And my biggest worry is that regime didn't draft him.
It's true.
So, what are they going to do with him? We'll see. What about big running backs? Saquon, CMC, Eckler, Henry.
I mean, I'm in on basically all of them. I think
issues, right?
Those are like first round studs. Like,
right.
I don't have a problem. Well, Barkley's going way lower than that. Barkley could easily fit into too low of ADP. I feel like, and you could probably speak to his injuries, but I feel like, a fairly flukish ankle injury that he was probably recovered by the end of the season. He looks like he's in the ridiculous shape already.
Unbelievably, he looks crazy.
It's insane. I think Barkley is primed for a bounce back candidate, kind of like an aloe vera player, where he burnt you last year, but you throw on that aloe vera and you feel better about it this year because he should be 100% healthy, I would imagine.
I think you agree, Doc, on Barkley specifically, right?
Yeah, I mean, Barkley, last year in our preseason injury preview, we're like, don't bank on Barkley. Where we were drafting last year in your Scott Fishbowl 11, I was in a spot where Barkley was going to fall to me. And I was like, I don't want him there.
Right.
I forget where we drafted, middle of the first round. Like, I hope someone else takes him.
It's the middle, yep.
We're in the middle of the first round. Like, I don't want him. If he comes to me, I don't want to take him. I need someone else to take him so I can get a better player kind of deal. And down him all year. Of course, no question the ankle. But even in the first few games, he did better than we thought, but he wasn't 100% from that ACL. And he will be this year. Now, it's a new offense, new coach, new everything else. But, yeah, he should be good to go. Christian McCaffrey's maybe a double aloe vera player, right? You're like, been burned 2 years on him if you've been going after him. But there's no physical. Prior to his last 2 years, he has not been injured. So there's no physical reason why he can't come back.
Right.
Derrick Henry, we're great on. In that playoff game, I don't know if you saw, Scott.
I did. Yep.
We're like, wait a minute. He's not ready to go. And you look at the stats. Taylor will remember him. He had
just the volume.
some yards.
20 for 60, yeah. 20 rushes.
For 60 yards. 17 carries for 50-some yards to the left side, cutting off the healthy left foot. And on the right side, it was 3 carries for 3 yards or something. It was like crazy. The 2 plays I remember to the right are the 2-point conversion. They ran him to the right, and they didn't get it. And I think everybody's Derrick Henry owner's dream is to have Derrick Henry out on the edge with an unblocked cornerback.
Yeah.
He wins that battle 95% of the time. That was no gain in that game. He didn't cut it upfield. But with all that negativity to saying that he wouldn't be King Henry, there's no reason he's not King Henry right now.
Right.
With some of the
videos you saw.
Videos, right? Yeah, the up running, cutting, and everyone posts a video. That's not an issue. The guy that I'm most concerned about, running back, I'm still concerned about Raheem Mostert. The type of surgery he had is not one that's amenable to good comebacks. The osteochondral allograft, and besides the scheme and what have you.
What is that surgery exactly? Just
it's a bone and cartilage transplant. It indicates that he had a significant a cartilage lesion down to bone, and even if he I mean, could he eke out one good year or something? Maybe, but the natural history of that is not great, and so down on him. And we actually put out one of our first ones that before Saints training camp, Michael Thomas put out some video that concerned me.
Yeah.
The way that he looked running straight line. And obviously, now the news is out. He hasn't been cleared. And if you go back to Sports Injury Central, we kind of said, and it wasn't just me, we had other docs on board too. We kind of said he might be wide receiver. Before he got injured, he was a top wide receiver, top 3 wide receiver.
He was the number
in the
1
league,
receiver in fantasy.
right? He was in the league. He was certainly a top 3 receiver. I think he might be the 3rd receiver on his team right now, with Landry and Olave.
Yeah,
I mean, and how he's doing. And so one of the things we're pushing this year, Scott, is really going hard on the Sports Injury Central or 6 scores. So basically, if Michael Thomas's, and I don't remember off the top of my head what his 6 score is now for the season, but it's not very high.
58.
Yeah. So we have him at 58, which means if he's projected to get 1,000 yards, count on 580.
Oh, boy.
I mean, that's the way that we try and utilize the 6 scores, et cetera. So we'll see what happens, but I know one thing for sure is that in Scott Fishbowl 12, there's no possible way that I will end up in first place because I've talked about it now. So it is done.
It's on record. Yeah, you're right.
There's not a chance.
Jinxed
I mean,
it.
I'll be lucky to avoid last place at this point in time, kind of thing. And I won't even need Taylor shenanigans to knock me out. I'll do something silly. I mean, my beginner. I mean, Scott, have you ever heard anyone who joined Scott Fishbowl who's never formally played fantasy before?
There have been, but they've been like
Really?
7 years old, 11-year-old.
Oh, okay.
Like we like kids.
He brought it down there.
But
Well, look, Scott, I'm a lot closer to 70 than I am to 7. Okay? I'm on that side of the equation. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was like flattered and having a lot of fun, so thank you very much. And it teaches me a lot. And, you know, the number one question I always get is, should I play so-and-so this week? Depends on who you have. Else you have, and it depends on your league and your scoring. I can't answer. I could just tell you the injury side of what it is. I can't
Those are big
tell
issues,
you the other side of what's happening. Well, Scott, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate you. And you know, shout out to you. And you do all this, and you raise a lot of money for charity, and that's what you try and do with all of it. And the fantasy community in general has been that way, but you especially. So definitely kudos to you. We'll figure out some donation again, whether Toys for Tots or something else. I know you love that. Toys for Tots is a good thing. I was a big supporter back in the day of the Shop with a Jock program with Junior Seau. I was on his board. And what made it really special, it was partnered with Target, and it's very similar for Toys for Tots. But what I loved about it is this, and so Toys for Tots are near and dear to me. You want every kid to get a toy for Christmas and the whole deal. But what the Seau Foundation did with Shop with a Jock is they wrote letters, and then you got accepted. And you got money, and you would shop with an athlete. Sometimes it was a college athlete, whatever, San Diego State, USD, sometimes Chargers, Padres. And that athlete would supervise your shopping. And on rare occasions, they were short board members like myself would shop with kids. But the job was to come home and be a hero. Get something for your mom. Get something for your brother. Get something for your sister. Budget your money. Get something for your dad. And now with the leftover money, get something for you. Now, what would always happen is if there was any overage, either the store took care of it or the athlete kicked in the money and the kid got what he wanted. And I always thought it was just so special.
That's amazing.
Not only to get a toy, but like it teaches them the gift of giving and that they can be the heroes that day in their home with all these nice gifts, you know, for the whole rest of the family. And that to me always was special. So whatever you do with the Toys for Tots, we love it. Thank you very much. Anything else you want to add or promote or anything?
You telling me that story. Like I got feels just listening to that story about that's.
Oh, believe me, I had to cut it short. I started getting feels.
Yeah. Oh man.
I mean, as I think about
That is
I mean,
really awesome.
and believe it or not, I mean, unfortunately, with Junior's untimely passing,
Yeah.
originally that was a concept they were taking national to different athletes, because the gift of giving is so much more. I mean, it's great if a kid gets a bike for Christmas.
Right.
I'm all for it. But just imagine the long-term power of letting them
Right.
come home and with gifts for the family. And they literally are excited to shop for their brother or sister or their dad or
Yeah,
something.
I can imagine.
And they otherwise wouldn't have any of the money, and it's just so meaningful.
That's wow. That is amazing. I'd never heard about that before, but now, wow, that's awesome. Just awesome. Goes with everything I stand for out there, honestly. And granted, that's not on the fantasy football side, but I've been saying for years, decade plus, on shows, like, if you're in a fantasy league, give one of your entry fees to charity. Like, your league won't miss it. The whole league will be behind it and feel good. Nobody's going to care, and you're going to make a difference out there. And with the hundreds of thousands of fantasy leagues out there, we can do some real good with this hobby of ours if each league is just giving one donation to charity.
And you're doing that, which is awesome,
Yeah.
Scott, for sure.
Which is, and you're doing much more than that. And Scott, I don't even know where you live. I see all this Eiffel Tower in Paris. Where are you?
Yeah,
Not
my
there, right?
wife was in we're all Minnesotans here. My wife was in
Okay.
France for a while, and we've gone to Paris. We've gone around France a few times in our life, but
Where
that explains
in
the
Minnesota? Which lake are you on?
Twins, pretty much, right? We're in the Twin Cities. I'm in Eagan, Minnesota. But yeah,
Okay.
not on a.
Well, Scott,
there is a
I
lake
spent time
nearby.
there. I used to live. This is a few years ago now, in downtown Minneapolis.
Okay.
And right off of Hennepin.
Okay.
That first, as you come into the city, that first complex on the left there. And of course, I'm from San Diego, so I took the little habit trails to get to the Target Center, and everything else that's there.
Yeah.
I worked there. I actually spent some time with the Vikings as an
Okay.
assistant, the Timberwolves, and the Twins down at spring training. So I love Minneapolis.
Oh, nice.
Very, very progressive city. I know where Eagan is,
Yep.
and the whole deal.
Very cool.
All right, thank you very much, Scott. Thanks for joining us here. Good luck with Scott Fishbowl 12 and 24, and I know you're going to.
Good luck to us, too, right?
30. Oh, Jesus, we're already done. I mean, come on. There's no chance we're going to do anything this year. You know what? I'm probably going to do it to myself, because it's like, okay, I'm tired of. Look, don't get me wrong. I love Marty Schottenheimer. Brian Schottenheimer's still coaching. Marty, I'm not being negative at all, but. I might end up trying to say, how do I strategize so I can get out of that second round, the playoffs, which might blow up my chance to even make the playoffs, So, who knows? And as we've proven here, I have no strategy. There's no zero running back. There's no zero quarterback strategy. It's just how it falls. I mean, what do we do for a zero wide receiver strategy?
That's next, right? Yeah.
Honestly, Fishbowl's perfect for that, because the scoring
No,
is
that's
so
the one thing,
balanced
Scott.
that you can figure
your
out.
settings
you
are
can-
crazy. I've looked at some of your stuff. Like every year, you'll have 5 running backs, 5 quarterbacks, 5 wide receivers. It's not just one position
Yeah.
heavy. Like you figured it
Yep.
out for sure.
Yeah, it's so balanced.
Yeah, well,
you can
I
have
haven't figured it out yet.
strategy.
Not us yet.
Well, I figured out. I'm just trying to avoid being pressured to draft too early and having Michael Thomas news
There you
break
go.
on us
Yep.
again. All right, Scott, appreciate you, and we will continue with part 2 of the Pro Football Doc Sports Injury Central podcast. But once again, thank you to Scott Fish, and kudos for all the charity work and the fantasy work that you do.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's continue with part 2 of this week's Pro Football Doc podcast. That was nice to have Scott Fish on there. So besides Taylor, who you've heard a lot from, Jacob is on this podcast, as well as producer Justin, and so they may chime in and ask some questions. But, I mean, Taylor, this may be Taylor's last podcast now that I remember, the shenanigans he pulled last year.
You're remembering my mistakes, which is not what I wanted. Yeah.
And we won't even get into that. All good. Let's get on to the rest of it. Obviously, we've got lots of football stuff on and more football content, pro football content as the NFL season. I mean, this is the busy season for fantasy and futures and things like that. So there's a lot of good content at Sports Injury Central, sicscore.com. We'll have a full preseason preview shortly. Right now we have quarterbacks up, running backs are coming. We put up a lot of wide receiver content, etc. Thanks for going there. But we kind of just wrapped up sort of just wrapped up the hockey season, but the NBA season was just wrapped up too. Mm-hmm. And that was really our first year. We're pleased to have the Chicago Bulls former doctor, Houston Rockets doctor, and I think they added a lot. And I think we did all right considering that. I've had basketball experience. I worked a tiny bit with the Bulls, a little bit with the Minnesota Timberwolves, as we just talked about. I just don't have the vast experience. So, but to me, what we always talk about is insider information is not something we deal in. We deal in insider knowledge of how teams work. And I think for this next, for the NBA season, look, Zion Williamson, back in December, I just know a setback for a 300-pound guy with a stress fracture in his foot is not good. And that's why I said he's not making it back this year, and he didn't. And we sort of beat that. So none of it is calling someone in the Pelicans and getting the information. It's just looking at publicly available information and coming to some conclusions. And we had some pretty good stuff this NBA season. We won't get into the gambling stuff here, but we were, 61% if you just went by health, by 10 points.
10.6 score advantage.
There you go. But I'd rather much more talk about, you guys brought something up. I think it was you, Taylor, brought it up about the NBA draft. You had some questions.
Yeah, so we published a little bit of red flags who we thought was going to draft, and we had a couple. One was the big one who got drafted second overall, Chet Holmgren. 7 foot. He's listed as 195. We've talked about, we don't know, that's a baseball card weight maybe, right? But why did you red flag him, and why do you think he went to the Thunder?
Well, here's what we said. Look, first of all, there were 2 potential issues. And when I say red flag, that doesn't mean it's like a red light, okay? It just means you don't speed through the intersection and take him. You have to stop. And after you stop and you check things out, it could become green, the light, okay? So it doesn't mean they're not draftable.
Right.
But he has 2 red lights to me. One is 7 feet, 195, okay? Look, tell me why a guy who actually weighs 195 wouldn't be listed as 200. Don't you round up?
That's a very specific number.
Yeah.
Does anyone say they're 5'11 and a half?
No.
Come on.
My 6-year-old kid, if she was that height, they always like to rattle. If I'm 5.5.
Come on.
You're going to say 6 foot, but I've been caught too many times, so I just say 5'11 and a half.
Oh, you do?
I'm the one,
Okay.
I don't want to be caught in a lie. Then that looks worse than just saying you're 5'11.
Oh, but see, that means
always
Jacob,
at the half, though.
You have been caught in the lie.
Exactly.
Which means you have listed yourself as whatever
100%.
and then get caught in the lie. Well, as Spike Lee says, it's in the shoes. You could have got that half inch in the shoes.
There you go. That's good.
But in any case, that's my point. Like, I've known players that, offensive linemen said, I'm 300. Look, you're not 300. If you were 300, you list 295. You're not 295. You're 280. You're 295 with weights in your pocket. And I think Nick Hardwick talked about that, former Pro Bowl center for the Chargers, when he's on the podcast, that he'd weigh in and put stuff in his pockets because he wanted to be heavier. So if he really is 7 feet 185, I'm not saying he is, but I'm just saying I doubt he's truly 195. Right. That would put him at medically what we call an unhealthy body mass index. And look, people say, okay, he can bulk up for the NBA, but if he bulks up, what does it do to his speed and skill? I don't know. It's just a question mark, right? And you're drafting that high in the draft. So his height and weight and, injuries, that at least is a flag. I call it red flag. That doesn't mean I'm critical of the OKC pick. But the other big one is, I can tell you this, there is a higher association with connective tissue and cardiac disorders in people who are very tall. I'm not saying he has Marfan syndrome, okay? But there is a higher propensity. And realistically, is any team in the league going to draft a kid that high without a cardiac evaluation? I think the answer is no. Right? And here's the point. it was reported that he didn't do the cardiac evaluations at the NBA Combine, that he did them separately. So I'm not saying he failed them, but he probably, as it turns out, he probably made it very difficult for Orlando to even consider drafting him. If his agent withheld the heart information from Orlando, how can you really draft him? I mean, that ensured that he'd go after Orlando. There were some rumors to that effect. I don't know what the truth is. My own point is his height, weight. We talked about it. The other red flag is you got to do the medicals. Look, if you're the number one pick in the NFL draft, you may go to combines, do none of the workouts. You may or may not do the interviews, depending, but you're going to do the medical. And that's the one thing that you're always going to do. And he didn't do the cardiac component. So that may be why, it's secure. Maybe the smartest thing, he got what he wanted.
Right, and that's probably true too.
I mean, kudos him or his agent. I'm not blaming him. I mean, look, I was in the war room when the Chargers drafted Eli Manning, right? And then 4 picks later, we traded. Eli made it very clear he didn't want to be in San Diego. Could he have used some medical? I mean, especially when you're 7 feet, there's a glaring cardiac. Be careful, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe Eli didn't have any leverage he could have just withheld medical, but at combines, it's actually the way it's done. I guess he could have forgone all orthopedic evaluation. I don't know. I'm just saying it's an interesting.
It doesn't happen often, I'd say, right?
It doesn't happen often, but I would say when we from the outside don't know the story, there's something to it. And so, anyways, that's Chalmers. But the other one that we were heavy on, and I'm surprised that no one made – who was the first pick in the draft?
Paulo Panchero from Duke.
Now, am I wrong? I haven't – maybe they're out there. Were there any Patrick Mahomes drafted memes out there?
There should have been. You're right.
Yeah,
I remember that.
There's some likeness there.
No, Jacob. I saw it on social media. It was the Formula One race in Miami.
Yeah, he was at a race, yes. Yeah.
And Pablo Banchero was there.
You got mistaken for
and an English, I believe.
Yeah, it was.
It was a European reporter in the field. Went and Patrick shakes him down, and he's Pablo Banchero. He thinks so. People, he is kind of famous, even though he wasn't drafted yet at Duke. And so he answers the reporter about Formula One, and then someone in his ear, and he goes, "Oh yeah, that's not Patrick Mahomes." So there should have been some Patrick Mahomes was drafted memes, but I didn't see any.
I didn't see any either. No, you're right. No, he definitely look a little alike, though.
Oh, come on.
Give or take
I'm
like
trying to
4
get the
inches.
journalist some help here. No, you're
come
right.
on. Come on. All my people look alike.
Oh,
Come on. That's not. I mean, look. We'll leave it be. Forget height. He doesn't. No.
I'm already in trouble.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, there's the next guy, though, Doc. The one that you also red flagged, you gave the lowest 6 score, 56, was Patrick Baldwin. He might have dropped. He was supposed to be a top 10 pick. He fell a little bit. He went 28th to the Warriors.
I think it's a great pick for the Warriors.
Right.
Here's my thinking. Obviously, he's a top 10 talent, and I get where he went to college and the thing and what have you, changed the situation some. But when any injury goes across multiple seasons, you have to be concerned. And that was Patrick Baldwin's case. He had a high ankle, and then one of the excuses he didn't do well in his 1 year in college is the ankle was still bothering him and not 100%. That's a long-term injury. When is that going to turn around? That's why I was saying low 6 score. But here's also why I like it for the Warriors. Look, my time in the NBA was relatively short, and I didn't hold a head team position moniker. But in talking with the other pro basketball docs who have, look, the NBA draft at 28, who are you getting? Are you getting anyone that can crack the Warriors lineup? I don't think you are. But at 28, you can afford to take a guy who maybe has an injury concern, who maybe can work his way out of it, and has high ceiling. Like if he can go to his top 10 status again physically, that is a great draft pick.
It's a huge steal.
But other teams don't necessarily have that luxury. So I like the pick for the Warriors, even though medically I think his score is down. Maybe there's something they can do to fix it, or maybe it's just time to really get to 100%. And then now they do have a top 10 player. So I like that pick.
The one thing on that, Doc, the Warriors doctor did check him out, and they did say the ankle is still not 100%. So they do need to clear him for Summer League, which is in a couple, maybe
it's like 2 weeks, a week and a half, something.
So is there a chance maybe he doesn't play in Summer League too?
I don't think the Warriors would care.
Okay.
I think as long as they get something in the future,
Yeah.
I'm not sure the Warriors would care. I can't speak for them, but there's no question that, look, we talk about this a bunch, and when we give a bad medical and someone gets drafted, we're not saying that's a bad pick. It could be great. Look at how Jeffrey Simmons worked out for Tennessee.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's worked out great. I mean, we said he wasn't going to play the first half of the season, and he didn't play till the last quarter of his rookie season. He wasn't even that good. But look at him now. They got a bargain there for where they drafted him. So I think, and look, I've been in the war room with the Chargers where we said, look, here's an injured guy. And we've told the stories on the podcast before that. It's just analyzing what fits with your team and what your risk tolerance is and projecting down the road. You don't always have to draft for week one or game one of the next season.
Well, now that we wrapped up NBA, MLB is the only sport going on still, so we're still covering that heavy. Taylor's shaking his head because his favorite player is out for quite a while.
But let's not walk by, even though we don't formally cover NHL. We cover all injuries. And Kucherov, we talked about.
I tried to cover NHL first,
Kadri.
Kadri's thumb,
Kadri's thumb. We've been pretty good, and I mean, on some of that. That's in the more section at Sports Injury Central.
Yeah.
Right
Well, Kucherov was good too because he did have the injections that during the games, but I was looking at all his stats. He didn't play well. He was not moving around well. All his fantasy, all his props went under. So
how do you know all his props went under?
I might have hit him a little.
And did you buy me lunch at least or something?
I have 5 lined up for you. I just didn't want to buy you Subway last time. I was trying to be nice. Yeah, no, I agree. I added a lunch every time I talked to you after for sure. No, but hockey, baseball, isn't it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And what about the payment for playing an injured player and keep me off that list?
Well, that's something you might have to figure out. That might not be mine.
Don't worry, Doc. Yeah. I'll keep reminding you on that. Don't worry. I'll keep track of that.
No, so baseball. There's a few big things out there, right? Manny's on the verge.
Right.
We think, look, Bob Melvin is an experienced manager. He's not going to allow the team to puppet string him.
Right.
But in the right situation, I think Manny could pinch hit at any time. Look, he was shown, quote, playing third base or fielding grounders. He didn't even move. I mean, it was like bending over to touch his toes.
Chair, honestly,
I mean, it reminded me of my last year coaching the All-Star 8-year-olds. If I can get a kid to just bend down and get his glove down, I was happy. I wasn't worried about the kid trying to move 2 feet to the left or right. I mean, just get the ones between your legs. That's what Manny was doing. He's not ready to play third base yet. That's still a ways off. But in the right situation, I mean, look, I'm old enough. You guys aren't. I'm old enough to remember Kirk Gibson, Dodgers in the World Series. Manny doesn't have to be able to run the bases super well if he can swing. Depends on the circumstance, right? I mean,
so a situation like that, not obviously of that stature, but a situation that matters, he needs to come in, right?
Well, it depends. Depends on, pitcher hitter matchups, who's the batter coming up there, who else is there, what inning it's in, the situation. Right. One thing you cannot have is you cannot put Manny Machado up with man on first and 1 out. If bases are loaded and 1 out, boy, you can't let Manny hit into a double play.
Right.
I mean, he can't run right now very
he's
well.
He's Albert Pujols. He's Miguel Cabrera. He's that speed right now.
You can't do that. But look, if it's man on third, 1 out, and you need a sac fly or someone to drive the ball out of the infield, you'll take Manny all day long. You don't care what happens after that in a tie game or something like that. So I don't know. There's baseball situations that are beyond me, but I think he's available to pinch hit now. DH is a different story. That'll come later. But so far he's doing better. I mean, he did bypass the swelling phase. Taylor's guy, Bryce Harper, broken thumb. We don't know how bad, but it's usually comminuted. That's what we've written, which is multiple pieces. Surgery is a possibility. You're looking at 6 weeks. I think he comes back this season. When is the question?
Right.
But it's going to be an extended absence. And I'm telling you, I think I'm jinxed between Davis and I in this little league, okay? So his favorite player is Tatis. We all know.
Yeah.
And he's still not back yet. He took some, quote, dry swings. We can get into that, too, if you want.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
I mean, don't get me started. I live in town here. But then he switched to Machado, who was killing it. And he got the Machado jersey and everything. Now Machado's hurt. He's all over Cronenworth. In his little All-Stars, he's number 9. So I hope Cronenworth stays okay. But on our fantasy team is Bryce Harper, Walker Buehler, Mookie Betts. Now, it's not a big fantasy league, so that's why we get some good players. But it's not that we drafted that well. Only 6 teams in it. But
Well, Doc, I feel like every single week we bring up the National League MVP odds because every single week a guy gets taken off. Last week we took off Betts.
And Acuna.
Yeah, Acuna. Yeah, exactly. Every single week where the National League MVP gets
I mean, let me tell you, Manny might become a bargain if he comes
He's
back.
plus
real quick.
550 right now as the third.
That might be. I mean, Pete Alonso. Who else is there?
He's so you got Alonso
Paul
at plus
Goldschmidt.
500, and you got Goldschmidt. Remember I told you about him? He's the one that's over 35, but he's leading the league in RBIs. So they gotta put him up there as like a placeholder maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. We'll see if he keeps it up. But Bryce Harper isn't going to get it. Ronald Acuna isn't going to get it.
Harper dropped all the way to 7,000, and he was under 300.
Yeah, he's out.
Yep.
Machado's still in it. I mean, assuming he can come back like we're saying.
Is Acuna just not going to be able to have a full, healthy season this year?
I don't think he's going to miss a ton of time. I think, that Scooter, people made a big deal about Scooter. He fouled a pitch off his foot. He stayed in the game. It hurts. It's sore. And in our headline, and I'm not bashing Acuna at all, but he's hurt, legitimately hurt. He's not injured. There's a difference.
Right, nothing
That's like a motto
structural,
around here. I feel like we use that just to make sure we know what's significant and what's not. That's
And so, I don't know how long he's going to be out. Whenever he feels better, it's certainly not a great sign he's in a scooter. But those can turn around pretty quickly because there's nothing structural. You're not waiting for anything to heal. You're just waiting for soreness and swelling to go
pain
away.
tolerance issue.
Yeah, and he's not playing in the field, so he won't be out long at least. But there's a lot of baseball people there for sure.
Well, we'll have the rest of baseball coverage at sixscore.com. Our fantasy relevant injury previews are going to be rolling out too, so keep an eye on that. I know it's fantasy football drafting season, especially for Taylor. I mean, he's got a million leagues to draft, so he's got to space them out.
We talked about Devy earlier. Devy, you got to start early. College is coming.
Now, when you say Devy, I think of my little daughter because her name is
Yeah,
Devin.
yeah.
I call her
You're like,
Devy. I was like, what are you talking about her for? What does she do? All right, I feel bad that I'll go over this quick just because I feel bad. I don't like holding things back from the audience.
Sure.
I'm just going to do it hypothetical. Our boy Tatis. Look, we know our estimate seems to be the much more accurate one from the beginning of the season. Fine. But for those who don't know, the other day he was seen, I won't say caught, I almost said caught, seen taking some swings in the indoor batting cage there. I've been in that indoor batting cage, not inside that batting cage, the
restaurant.
Lexus Premier Club there.
Yeah.
Okay. The Padres, well, I don't want to be that specific, but let's put it this way. If indeed it was a tour and no one was supposed to be there and that's why he was seen, I don't remember any tours that serve alcoholic drinks in your hand. And there were some pictures of people with alcoholic drinks.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was just a systems check and it was planned, he's a $330 million guy. You don't think an assistant athletic trainer would have been there?
Like he was by himself. That means he snuck out, right?
Yeah. I'm not going to go that far.
Yeah?
I'm just saying. And I'm not being critical. Look,
Right.
I love Tatis. What makes him great is he's all in, all out.
Absolutely.
Plays with his hair on fire. That's what makes him great. He probably kind of lives his life that way a little bit, right? I mean,
He's got to do something.
I've known plenty of players that live that, especially when they were younger in their career in terms of what's happening. So no criticism. It's just, they're playing the PR game. I still am hopeful he's back after the All-Star break. What we said in the beginning of the season in March when this broke is, as a Tatis fan, this is a 4 to 6 month injury. 3 months is not realistic. A great result is to be back 100% right after the All-Star break. Let's hope for that. And so he still could do that, so let's keep hoping. All All right, anything else? Or are we going to Beast of the
Beast
Week?
of the week.
I'll throw it to Beast of the Week. We're on the baseball topic, so we got a special baseball one.
I think this is a football Beast of the Week,
Probably
isn't it?
right, yeah,
I
it's a
mean,
combo, for
it's
sure.
billed as baseball, but I think it's a football one.
The weight of the people in the video also replicate football as well.
Yeah, I mean, so Pablo Sandoval is how big?
See, he's listed at
I could say my just number out of my head
come on.
weight or the real weight.
5'10", 268 is what he's listed at Baseball Reference. Is that better or worse than Holmgren?
I mean,
Which one's closer? To accurate.
If you look at the video here.
Wait, what did you say the weight was?
268.
Oh, that's a lie, but it's okay. No, go ahead.
as you play the video here, as he barrels around, I mean, the easy Beast of the Week. I mean, Pablo Sandoval's a beast. There's no chance he's 268.
Right.
No chance. If he's 68, he's closer to 368 than 268. I mean, there is no chance. Just look at this guy barreling around full steam and crashes into the poor catcher. Now, the catcher deserves a Beast of the Week because, A, he blocked the plate. This is not Major League Baseball. It's not legal. The Buster Posey
Mexican
rule.
Independent
Here
League
he
Baseball,
comes.
yep.
Boom. And he blocked the plate. And Pablo Sandoval, I mean, freight train, right? And Sandoval.
Is there anything bigger than a freight train?
I don't know. I mean, let's put it this way. He was teammates with Buster Posey.
Correct.
Yep.
Buster Posey rule is there's no more blocking of home plate. That poor catcher concussed at least. I mean, look at Pablo Sandoval here. I mean, that's crazy. Look at how big he is. And he was running full steam. Like, look, I'm telling you, if he didn't run into the catcher, he might have run into the fans in the first row.
He wasn't stopping himself at all.
Not
Correct.
stopping. I mean, he was going full steam ahead. To the catcher's credit, call him a beast. He hung onto the ball.
Yep. Got
And
the out.
Pablo was out. But let me ask you guys this question. If you know this is the result, if the catcher knew this was the result, would he do it again?
No. I think he gives him the old Olay and lets him run straight into the
I think he
dugout.
does because I feel like I would make fun of him in the dugout if he didn't move, if he moved out of the way.
Fair point.
He's got to think about everybody making fun of him. That's part of his job in a really small sense, right? He needs to block the plate.
Why do you think no one wants to be a catcher anymore?
No,
It kills your knees, and then you got to do this.
He raised his hand at recess. He's like, I'm going to play catcher for us. So, I mean, he's playing catcher.
Is Hans Wilson, by the way, incredible name for a Mexican-born catcher, but he's listed as a catcher/right fielder. I think he's going to be lobbying for right field for a lot after this.
Sure. I'm a primary position now.
Is he Mexican born?
Yeah.
Interesting.
The one thing I'll say about his weight, you got that off of Baseball Reference.
Right.
They don't have any player cards for where he's currently playing.
Right.
I would argue that weight is probably ballooned a little bit.
That's what was on his rookie baseball card.
Yeah,
that's true.
It
It's probably
is
just carried
not-
over. Yeah.
It is not what it is.
The weight he picked up in his career was not added to that number.
I'm telling you, 368 it would be
Yeah.
way closer.
Well, I'll
than
say, what do you give us from
268.
like looking at his physique? What are you saying? Give me a number here, Doc.
Well,
You're saying adding 100?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, is he really even 5'10"? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say.
Probably true too.
Looks
I mean-
like 5'8", yeah.
Well, that might be reference, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Which would put, but he's a beast. He's huge. But that catcher's a beast for hanging onto the ball.
Absolutely.
So that's our Beast of the Week play. All right, guys. Thanks for watching and listening. And on Twitter, send a message or notification to me if you can think of a good penalty for Taylor, and for botching that thing there. And maybe for Jacob, what do you think? Maybe the best suggestion will follow.
I like that.
All right.
Within some boundaries. But
It's terrifying for sure. Yeah.
You good with that, Taylor?
Yeah, you're allowing the internet to decide my fate, which is terrifying.
It's never a good
but
idea, yeah.
I guess I'll allow it because I have no choice, right? So.
All right. Thanks for watching and listening. Pro Football Doc Sports Injury Central podcast. And thanks again to Scott Fish. And we'll see you guys, or hopefully you'll hear us next week. And go to the website in the meantime. Thank you.